This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 89, Parents as Leaders. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host. I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
What is up, everybody? This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey, show 89, Parents as Leaders.
Whoa. Well, I decided to do a very important show today, Parents as Leaders. And I have to say, I don't know what it is. I love doing the podcast so much. I've been smiling so much this morning. My face hurts. So especially this topic, it makes me really happy and excited to give it because I haven't done a lot on parenting. I say, things here and there. And I've had some parents reach out and say, I'd love for you to do a whole show about parenting. I'd love to hear more about some of your ideas. And recently, during a message on a Sunday morning, I talked about some visioning work I had done for the kind of parent I wanted to be as it related to my one son that I have. And so I want to tell you a little bit about that and just talk in general about some of the ideas I have about parenting, and also realizing that I want to step back and say each child has to be parented in their very own way because each child has a different soul journey. And I always thought if I had a book title that I might write for parents, it would be called Parenting the Soul, because so many books I've seen written are very formulaic. If your kid does this, do this. Well, what if your kid's autistic? What if your kid's on the spectrum? What if they're really advanced mentally? What if they are challenged mentally? What if there's a physical disability? So just some of the things that are, quote, formulas simply won't work. And I've talked with a lot of wonderful, wonderful parents over the years that feel frustrated. They feel like they've done wrong. And when they have beautiful, amazing kids, and they just haven't been giving the freedom to really honor what they feel their child needs because they read something different in a book somewhere, And so I wanted to follow this topic. Our last show was called Honor My Journey. And really this show there could be a subtitle, I honor my journey as a parent.
Yeah. And, we talked a lot about generational things last year or last week.
Felt like last year.
Now, full disclosure, just I don't have children. Shannon and I don't have any kids. It's something that we've processed through and prayed about. And it's it's just not going to happen for us, and that's okay. And I've come to learn that saying cats are the same is generally frowned upon.
Yeah, that's not really happening.
You made a good point. You're like, what did you say? If cats grew up and had responsibilities and jobs and family, right, then
it might apply.
That having been said, I can draw on my experience as a son reflecting on the leadership of especially my dad.
Yes, I think that's very true, Dave. And I know you had a very special relationship with your dad, and I spoke of that with my dad. Last show, and so this theme is coming up. It's exactly why I wanted to do it. And I also recently spoke about my mom in a message where my mom. I was recently speaking on a Sunday, and I was talking about. Instead of waiting on a blessing from God, being a blessing. And I said, my mom really taught me that. And she taught me through her actions. She taught me through her words, but mostly through her actions. She would say, go be a blessing. And she would. I mean, if there's one thing my mom taught me, it was to give and to give in support of others, to give to those in need, to give of yourself, your time, your money, your resource, to lift people up, when they needed it. So, yeah, I think, on the show, I've talked about some negatives of childhood. Well, I have some amazing positives as well. And I think, like any family, there's things that happen when we're little we wish would not have happened, and frankly, probably should not have happened. We grow up in abuse and dysfunction. But as we learn and grow, we can use those things to become better people. And then as parents, we don't redo those same things in our children, with our children.
Yeah, especially as you grow, you realize that your parents are just people. Like they're
Yes,
human beings
doing the best they can.
doing the best they can, making it up as they go, just like we are or we would. We're
Yes.
doing the best we can, and they're fallible, they're flawed, and they're not perfect. As children, you can't process that. If you're 5 or 6, you can't process, hey, my parent has an addiction, or my parent has an anger issue or something.
Right, because you go, what's an addiction and what's anger? All you know is this is the environment
Right,
you're growing up in.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and I think also we're very complex beings. And, the more I've learned psychologically, spiritually, my own emotional work, through my dream work, et cetera, I've really seen how certain things drive behaviors that are so unconscious that I have a greater level of understanding now of the past. And I'm sure as my son grows, he'll see things that, I've done. It's like, oh, well, that must be something she was working on, So now I can look back and have a lot of compassion and a lot of understanding for some of the choices my parents did make, realizing, well, it was unconscious guilt that was, really driving that, or it was they weren't protected, so they didn't know how to protect me. They tried, but couldn't, whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's what's fed a lot of, the millennial boomer thing that we talked about last show, where boomers or that generation feels that millennials feel that they are entitled, but a lot of that stems from, in my opinion, the previous generation wanting to provide so much for their children because they didn't have it.
Yes. Well, yes. In my research, what I learned is that millennials are the most wanted and the healthiest generation our country has ever seen.
When you say most wanted, what do you mean? Like their parents wanted them? Or?
Yes. They weren't accidents.
They're the most deliberately
conceived.
Gotcha.
Healthiest, most supported, in terms of, oh, you want to do that, honey? Yay, let's do it. Let's get you the right teacher, the right this, the right that. And again, largely because, their parents weren't very supported. So the pendulum swung way the other way.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great lead in, what we're talking about. We said at the beginning that the title of today's, the title of today's show is Parents as Leaders. I got this idea years ago reading. I've read a lot of books on parenting, and as I've done my own spiritual and emotional work, there are a few things that have really stuck, and one of them was kids need leaders. And in today's society, I think there's a lot of parents that want to be their kid's best friend because maybe they grew up in an environment where they felt really separate from their parents and they felt like the parents were just giving them rules, for no reason, or were strict for no reason. And so there tends to be, again, a little going overboard trying to be their kid's best friend. And because of that, the kids don't know what the boundaries are. The kids don't know no means no. The kids don't have real responsibilities in the home and things like that. As a matter of fact, one of my son's doctors in his checkup, yearly checkups always says, tell me what jobs you're doing around the home. And I asked him about that, and they said so many of the families they see, the kids don't have any jobs. Their job is to go to school, they say. No. So when I say parents as leaders, what does this mean? Well, this means that the parents are both modeling the behaviors they're asking for, and that they are clear in their asking, and then leading by being conscious about the direction their child is taking them in the journey. So I want to tell you what prompted a little bit of the show. I mentioned it, but I want to go in depth because this touched so many people. They said they wanted to hear more about it. So when my son was about 4 or 5 years old, I was really working on my parenting, and I decided to write down what is the what would I want my son to say to me on my deathbed? In other words, what would he have learned as a result of growing up with me? And of course, he has his other mom and stepdad as well, so he has a lot of supporters. But I'm only dealing with me and my side in this topic today because there are amazing supports for him as well. So, but if I died, he was an adult, what would I want him to say back to me? And I wrote that down, and I wanted to mention the book. I can't remember the author's name, but this is not my original idea, but I have worked with it for years now. The name of the book I believe, is called Keepers of the Children, and it's written by a Native American couple. And so this is really a Native idea of how to raise your children.
I'm looking for it by Laura Ramirez.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have links to that in our show notes.
Yeah, yes. And it's a really interesting book because in there she talks a lot about advocating for your children. And boy, there's a lot I want to say. I'm going to pause, take a breath, and then start back with the story. Give me a moment. I was really moved years ago when I began this process of writing down what I thought my son would say to me on my deathbed. And one of the things I've practiced since I first wrote that down is I would check in with my son on how he thought I was doing as a parent. Any good leader knows how their staff under them feel about their leadership, how they're feeling in their role. And it's important to have communication about that. So in this model of it's basically like almost giving thanks in advance, almost visioning with what I hope he would say. That vision is going to draw me forward on the things I should do as a parent for him to ever get to those things. So for many years, he did not know, what this vision was. I just thought I'm going to hold this vision, and every now and then I'm going to check in with him on certain things with how I'm doing. So every 6 months to a year, I'll say, "Hey, how do you think I'm doing on this parenting thing?" And I remember when I first asked him, it was about 5 or 6. He said, "Well, I think you're doing pretty good, but I wish you would get frustrated less." I said, me too. So that was really very good feedback, because if I want to have a close relationship and he keeps seeing me be frustrated over and over and over, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, that really requires a level of trust.
Yes, it does. And so my job when I ask him, how am I doing? It's not to deflect. It is not to make wrong. It's to listen and take it in. And from my counseling with people over the years, as soon as their kids tell them the truth, there's so much defense and you're shut up and sit down and I'm the parent. They're not even hearing it. And I was surprised that was the first, response that I got. But what I felt is it was true, and I felt he was right. I did need to get frustrated less. So it's like, okay, well, why am I frustrated? So then I start asking myself, why am I frustrated? Because I'm not being clear in my expectations. Frustration comes when a behavior is not done that I'm expecting him to do or know, right? And I know, one of the things I've worked with from my childhood situation, because I had so many older siblings, sometimes I was expected to know things. There's no way a child should know, without being told. So anyway, when he said that, I said, I wonder if I'm deflecting some of what happened to me, if I'm, kind of transferring that onto him, some of that frustration I got and I felt. So it really caused me to pause. And so then about a year later, I asked him the question again. I got a different answer. So I said, okay, maybe I'm doing a little bit better, and then so over the years.
So you would do this annually?
Oh, yeah. I mean, every 6 months, if I just think about it, I'll do it. Because there's times where I'm really working on things more than others. Because I think when I'm working on myself, that always translates into my parenting. But I think all of us can move into unhealthy patterns and behaviors because of how we were raised. It takes a lot of effort, I believe, to move out of childhood patterns because we just do what we know. And so to learn new ways, takes effort. To learn new ways takes effort. And what I want to say to every parent is I learn from my child, from my son every day. And I think if we're open, my view is that they come to us straight from God. They come to us with their own knowledge, with their own spiritual DNA. And the things I've learned from my son about boundaries, the things I've learned from him about technology, the things I've learned from him about honesty. I mean, I don't think I could have learned him any other way. I mean, he's a huge blessing in my life. Well, if I always have to be right and I always have to, say, I'm the parent and you sit down, that's never going to happen.
There's no room for that.
There's no room for that. No, there's no room for that. And so, I think like any parent and child, we have times we disagree. We have times we're frustrated with each other. But my belief is there's trust that if he tells me the truth, if I tell him the truth, we can hear that.
And I just want to clarify, just because I'm curious, asking him this isn't coming from a place of self-doubt. It's not coming from, I hope I'm doing okay, validate me. I mean, it's not coming from that, is it?
No. Actually, it's from a real place of power and knowing who I am. It's like, okay, what I'm wondering is the way I'm viewing my parenting and the way he's viewing it, are they the same? And are my intentions that I've set for myself carrying forward?
Yeah, I could see how somebody who maybe didn't, if they were super insecure about their parenting, I could see where that question, like asking your child, how do you think I'm doing, could be coming from like a wormy place.
Well, it could. It could. Well, I probably should have said this at the beginning, that I realized after Josh came into the world, because I did not give birth, his other mom gave birth. And when Josh came into the world, I just so realized that he was going to start in his development where I was. Mm-hmm. Here's what I mean by that. All the work I've done therapeutically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, even on my physical body, he's going to start where I am. And I've worked very hard to get where I am, right? So So hold on. So I think that it gives me a tremendous responsibility as well as a tremendous sense of, a tremendous sense of responsibility in continuing the work, because I know he benefits from my work even more than I do, because he's young and he's very impressionable, and he's taking in all of what I'm doing, all of what I'm saying, all of what I'm trying to do. And there's that song in that line in What a Wonderful World. It says something like,
they'll know much more than I'll ever know.
Yes. They'll know much more than I'll ever know. But what I know is that he'll start where I am, because I started where my parents were. It's just how it goes. Mm. The scriptures say it this way, the sins of the father are visited on the sons and the daughters, right? That means that we carry on in our traditions these these behaviors, these dysfunctions, for lack of a better word, until we heal them. Well, when we begin to heal, he's only going to know healing. Sometimes if I tell him stories of things from my past, he's like, Mom, that sounds crazy. And I go, it was.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong about that. Thank goodness. But I want him to know about certain things, right? So certain patterns, so he doesn't fall into them, so he's aware of them, and things like that. So one of the things, the best way we lead our children is by working on ourselves, And so, yes, this question of, how am I doing as a parent? It's a very vulnerable question. And you have to be able to hold your own to be able to hear honesty from your child. Because what I know about kids and what I love about kids and what I love about working with kids, they tell the truth. Unless it's been beat out of them, they tell the truth. And even then, sometimes they will. So it's a profound responsibility to be a parent, to do your best to parent your child. And really what you're doing is helping to parent their soul. Because when our child comes in to this life wave, to this lifetime, to this third dimensional reality, it has within it a spiritual DNA. It has within it its own goals, dreams, and desires. And I think as a parent, my main job is to support that and to get out of the way. Not to force him to do anything, not to make him do anything, because he already knows what is his to do. My job is to support him in doing it and to not get in the way, of what he's here to do. So it seems like a good place to stop, and we'll be right back right after these messages.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You can learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. We'd also like to extend our special thanks to Zen Living Realty. Zen Living Realty's mission is to mindfully serve, connect, and positively impact their customers, partners, and community through their Zen approach to real estate. Their vision is to be the most trusted real estate brokerage in the Central Florida area. You can reach Zen Living Realty at zenlivingrealty.com or call 407-800-2717. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome back. We are glad you're with us. And, my hope is even if you're not a parent, you're staying tuned in because you might be an aunt or an uncle or a neighbor. And all of these things I'm saying still apply. I mean, it's not like you would say to a neighbor kid, you wouldn't necessarily envision what would they say on my deathbed. But what you might do is think, okay, how would I want this person to remember me? Was I a happy, healthy uncle? Was I a happy, healthy relative and neighbor? Or was I the neighbor that was always, grumping when the ball went in the yard, or was,
Yeah, and I think it's important. Like I said, we don't have kids. That having been said, I've definitely mentored lots of like young men, discipleship things, and just being a teacher. There's a parental role that kind of goes along with that. So as I'm hearing you, like you mentioned how am I doing? I mean, I do that with every class when I send them a student course evaluation. How am I doing? And I really do want their feedback, because I can set up a class and I can do curriculum and all that, but I have blind spots. I'm not the one taking the class, right? And sometimes it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget what it was like not knowing the things you know. Mm-hmm. And so obviously, it's not a direct parallel, but I think there are these elements of parenting that might apply to you out there, listeners, even if you're not actually a parent. Like she said, you might have a niece or a nephew or a young person that just likes hanging out, at your house or whatever, playing basketball. I don't know. But my
Exactly.
guess is there's probably more parenting done or that kind of nurturing than maybe you think.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, I think there is. I've had some really close relationships with several of my nephews. And, one I talk to often, the others not as often, but I know what they're doing through family, through friends. And they know that I'm a safe, good support for them. They know that. So they know if there's a need, they know if they have a need, they can call. From one of them when his wife had to have a baby that, things kind of went sideways and they had tons of bills. Well, I was the first call. I said, what do you need? The answer is yes. And they know that I'm going to be there for them. And that's worth so much. Again, it's so interesting what this particular nephew recently told me. He goes, you know what I've learned? You can tell your kids you love them, but if you're not there, it doesn't mean anything. I said, you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And so he's learning that as a parent. He's got 3 kids of his own now, So that's the other piece, that I want to work into is that this is a process. I don't know a single perfect parent. And I think really we get into trouble when we're trying to act like and seem like, we're the perfect parent. I'm the first to say, I got a lot to learn. I got a lot to learn, But you're right. I think being a good neighbor, good friend, good leader with young men, young women is a very important role and is like a parental role. And in fact, when you get close to some of those people you're supporting, you in their lives become a parent figure. Mm-hmm. And it's very helpful, especially if the parent figure they have is unhealthy. Yeah. So I think this is a really important topic. One of the things I believe is lost in our culture is that, used to be when you wanted to work in a particular field, you had to apprentice for a year, 5 years, 10 years, that it took a long time before you might move into taking over a position. Well, now everybody's cutting budgets, everybody, and it's like you're thrown into situations you're not ready for. So I have this kind of hidden desire. I'd love to bring some of that back, that this mentorship, this teaching, this guiding would return to more of the fields we see. And what I see when, as I know some individuals that's happening with, and when I see that happening, what I see is the seasoned person is learning about technology from the younger, and the younger is learning more wisdom from the older. So a lot can really be learned. And this relates back to the parenting. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. How we view ourselves is very different often than how our kid, our child, or our relative might be taking in our behaviors. So to get back to this idea, we're visioning the future, and then we are checking out how our child is, how they think we're doing. So recently, I had the opportunity to share my vision with my son, and we agreed the things I needed to work on to make that happen. Now, since that point, let me step back. After we read the vision out loud, and I asked him how I was doing, I want to make sure this was clear. We both agreed on the area I needed to work on. He said the area, and I said absolutely. I also think that vision would change now a little bit because I've matured as a person. I've expanded my awareness of who he is. I've expanded my awareness of who I am. So that's going to give him more freedom to do and be as I shift and change my awareness. So, but the vision of what I hope he would say is very, very powerful because it calls me into being not only a leader, but a good leader, a leader who leads by example. And it's going to call me into certain behaviors for that vision to be made manifest. Now, to do any of those behaviors, what I have to do is be consistent, and I have to be conscious. I have to work at being conscious. I have to set up situations for him to learn and grow, to do and become the things I hope he becomes. And as I'm saying this, I'm not saying career. I'm not saying I'm going to force him growing up to be a fireman. I'm going to force him to grow up and be a computer technician. I'm talking about the kind of individual, kind, loving, spiritual, thanking me for, experiences that help him become the type of person that can do anything they desire. So I hope this is clear. When I say a vision for what he might say to me, the vision is a gratitude for what our relationship had given him, but he's got his own path and his own journey. So I want to be clear. I'm not saying I'm trying to control his journey. It's not that at all. I'm visioning the type of person he will be, and then rolling that all the way back and saying, well, if he's going to do that and he's going to be aware of that, what are the things that I need to do? What are the instances? What are the circumstances? What are the roles I need to play? Where do I need to step back and let other people step in and mentor? What are the experiences he needs to be able to say that to me later? So it's not controlling his journey. I also want to really caution all of us because we tend to want to place our desires on our kids in a way that's very limiting for what it is they're here to do. I honestly believe that most of us don't know, what our kids are supposed to be doing. What we can glean, though, over time is watching behaviors, and that will give us clues as to their destiny and as to their purpose. When we know that, and when we see that, well, then we try to give them opportunities that help grow. And that's what I mean by parenting the soul. If I see an interest in my son, then I'm going to watch and see how that interest starts to expand. Because I know, here's another statement I really stuck with, all behavior is communication. All behavior is communication. Especially when kids, before they have verbal skills, how do they get their needs met? They go like this. Wah! Okay, we know that means something. That means I'm hungry, or my diaper needs to be changed, or my tummy hurts. That has a meaning. Well, as they grow, if they're acting out, if they are lethargic, if they are angry on a regular basis, those behaviors are telling us something. If we see them do something and they light up and they are free and they're laughing, those behaviors are telling us something. So it requires us as parents, as leaders, to be aware, to pay attention, to see those areas, those times where the soul is lighting up when it's doing certain things. What's giving our children energy? What is taking their energy? How are they, unbalanced? Are they too much time in front of a screen? Are they sloughing off their homework? Are they not doing their jobs around the house? All behavior is communication, right? So it's important for us to really be observers of what they're doing. What I notice in today's culture is a lot of parents put their kids in front of the screen so that then they can be on their phone, swiping down Facebook and Instagram and all that. Well, when they're doing that, they're missing out on what their kid is doing, and their kids are now missing out on real experiences because they are glued to a screen.
Well, and screens are also kind of used as pacifiers. Like
Totally.
Shannon and I went out to eat the other day, and it was like prime dinner time. It was at Outback or something. And we noticed like there are a lot of families in here, and none of the kids were like misbehaving. There had to be like 5 or 6 families with children. And, 10 or 15 years ago, there would have been like crying or,
Right.
fighting or whatever. Mm-hmm. But to the child, every single one of those kids had a device. And that's how I see these devices getting used.
Oh, it is. It is.
It's like a pacifier.
It was true. I was hiking the other day with my pack. I was in town at a park, but, you and I are doing this.
The rucking.
The rucking, yeah. Me and you were doing rucking. And, by the way, now 3 more people are doing it that I've talked to about.
Anyway.
But anyway, I was walking, and I noticed this kid. I think he was probably 5. He was really small, and he was on a hoverboard. And while he was on a hoverboard in the park, he was also looking at a phone. He was 5 years old, going around on a movable object about 6 feet from traffic. Not even 6 feet from a car going by. on a hoverboard looking at a phone. I thought, my gosh, where's his mother? And I looked back. What was she doing? Walking, looking at her phone. So I thought, okay, I really want to say something here, but it's really not mine to do. But what I'm going to try to do, what I'm going to try to do is as I walk in that park, I'm going to try to get to know this mama. And I am going to do my best to get a word in when it's appropriate about my concern. If I say something now, it's going to be a complete shutdown. And if I don't at least try to do something, I'm going to feel like I really have not done the best I can for this kiddo. So it's a huge concern of mine that people are too plugged in, adults too, myself included.
Yeah, it's really easy to say these kids are on their phones, but
they're just doing what they see.
Yeah, just in our own family, we were, I think it was Thanksgiving or one of the holidays, we were watching a parade or something, and every single one of us, myself included, had the TV on with the parade, and we were all looking at our phones. And we represent, two generations here. So no, it's not just young people; it's senior citizens and millennials and middle age. We all.
No, we're all doing it. Yes, we are. And so we have time, where we just don't have the phone. We just put it down, leave it in the house. Now we think, oh, it's a safety thing. You remember how safe we used to be with no phone? I mean, the phone really doesn't make us safer. What that really means is I'm so addicted, I have to have it with me at all times. But so the device thing is, especially even in the last 5 years, seems like that has really increased. It has in my house in the last 2 years. I've seen a real difference. So it really takes a lot of discipline to put it down. But parents, I really want to suggest as much as possible, put down that device, because I'll tell you, your kids are going to grow before you know it, and you're not even going to know them.
Yeah, and it's not that phones are inherently bad. Just no more than sugar is inherently bad. It's what you do with it. We were talking about, it's okay to have a cupcake, just don't have 10 of them in a row.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you've probably heard it said, people pay more attention to what you do than what you say. I can't hear what you're saying because your actions are speaking, so loudly. And I find this with kids, and I'll tell you, if you're telling your kid to be off their phone and you're on yours constantly, they're going to say to you, well, you're on yours, and they're going to be right. So you could say move off your phone, but if you're on yours all the time, it's not going to sit well. It's not going to bode well.
Well, it feels like a double standard.
It is.
Feels
There's
like
going to be tension.
Hypocrisy.
Talk about frustration. You can do whatever you want, but I can't be on my phone. Why is it okay for you, not for me?
Swearing or anything like that.
Oh, yeah. Don't swear, damn it. Right. Exactly. I said don't swear, damn it. So yeah. And I think just if we think about ourselves as leaders for our children, it changes things.
The picture that keeps coming to mind, it's like a meme I've seen. It's about leadership styles. One has like a guy on a chair, and he has his team underneath him carrying him. And so he is sitting on top of the chair, pointing, saying, go, right? And so that's one style of leadership. And that's the bad style. Basically, you carry me and I'm telling you what to do. The other is the team is pulling the chair behind them, but the leader is at the front pulling with them, saying, let's go this way. Have you seen this picture?
No, I haven't, but I love the image. Well, and it's so interesting. I was thinking actually this morning as I was leaving on my walk, because one of the things I think, and also in our generation of kids, is they don't get quite enough exercise. Some kids do, but the exercise is mostly with organized sports. To get out and play or do some kind of movement or martial arts, I think it's really, really important. Doing walks, just something to get the heart rate up. And I remember thinking this morning, because my son had a really big day, and I didn't want to bother him this morning with getting up and let's walk. He had a lot of huge exercise yesterday, so I left it alone. And I thought, am I going to teach him more by getting up and doing that, or by haranguing him into exercise? Probably just by getting up and showing him that I feel good and to exercise. And as I was leaving with my pack, with my second brick in it this morning, I added a brick. I was thinking of my mom and how when I was When I was in school, I was 15. I started her running. I was 15. She was 55. She was, 50. Well, however old I was, she was 55. I guess I was 14. Yeah, she was 55. And so I said, Mom, for school, I need to do some running. She said, let's do it. I'll run with you. Let's talk to our friend who's run road races. She'll help us know what to do. Well, suddenly now, this is a thing. It wasn't just me having to get out there and do it. She was a leader, right? She said, let's get out there and do it. Well, she was 55. By the time she was 70, she ran the New York Marathon. I've never run a marathon. She participated in the, what was it called? I think it was called like the Goodwill Games. She was in the Senior Olympics. She was won medal after medal after medal for running.
And she started when you started.
She started when I was 14 and she was 55. And for her 80th birthday, she ran a half. That was her last half marathon. She's 92 now, right? So she was a very good leader in that regard for me. You want to do that? You need to do that. Let's do it. Right. And I think for her, it became kind of an important escape. A mom of 9, but 7 living children. Her husband was an alcoholic, and she was taking care of her mom with Alzheimer's. She needed a release valve. Running was that for her. But she would have never done it, I don't think, if it wasn't for me. Right? So if my son then shows interest in something, I'm going to say, let's do it. And this is how we started with our Tai Chi kind of. He knew I was interested, and I said, hey, do you want to go take a look? And on his own, he chose to do it. But I was going, and suddenly now it's a thing. There's a whole new community now we're a part of, right? And so this is what I mean by leading. Okay, you want to go do that? I'll drop you off and I'll go shop and I'll stay in my car and do Facebook and text people and talk with my friends. No, that's not being a leader. That's being lazy. Right? So I'm just going to call it what it is. Parenting is hard work.
Yeah, it communicates like what value you put on that. Like
exactly.
Yeah, and this isn't parenting, but this is why I go into like clothes stores with Shannon.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes, most of the time I'm bored out of my mind.
Right.
Because
you're a good husband.
Right. But I'll sit there and I'll hold her the clothes that she's trying on, and I'll say it. I'll go into the dressing room with her.
Yeah, and be like, oh yeah, that works, that doesn't work.
Put that down, and I'll help sort and hang things back up. Yeah, it's being a part of that process versus the stereotypical. I'm drop you off and just roll my eyes while you go do your girly thing. No.
I know, exactly. Well, and I think when we're in healthy relationship, whether it's friendship or romantic, we are reparenting ourselves and the people around us by how we choose to love and support them. So I almost wish at the very beginning of this show I would have thought to say that, because that's exactly true. And you guys, I've seen your love for each other too. That's really beautiful that you do it. So this is just a show to lift up these ideas that, a friend of mine once said, if you knew you were a leader, would you be happy with where you led people? And so we want to think about that with our own kiddos, with the people we love as well. We are their leaders, and they learn more by what we do than what we say. And so that real true support is like hanging in there with, if there's interest, their soul is showing us an interest. We move into that interest with them, and we check out, how are we doing in our parenting? Are you feeling heard? Are you feeling supported? And if not, what can mama do or what can daddy do to make you feel like you're heard? And I'll tell you, that'll do amazing things for your relationship with those you love, because everybody wants to be loved and heard and supported.
I wanted to circle back to one other thing, because at the beginning of the show, I kind of like gave a shout out to my dad.
Yeah.
And because what I learned from him as he was a leader was really how to love my mom. I mean, he unconditionally loved my mom and showed it every. There was never a question. But one of the things that we weren't able to do, and I don't know if it's because he didn't live long enough, but I mean, I was in my 40s when he passed, so it's not.
Right.
We never turned the friend corner. You mentioned
Yes.
earlier about parents trying to be the friends too much.
Oh, and when they're
Right.
young, I meant, yes. I
Right.
think when we're older, well, actually, by the time they become responsible, you should be able to move into that, fairly.
Yeah, and that's my dad
early.
never turned that corner. And that's if I had I don't want to say it's a regret, but if there's something that I desired from my relationship is if we could have moved beyond just, hey, make sure, giving me fatherly advice, until, up until he died, really. Because the last month he was alive, I was calling him every single day and just to hear his voice, because you kind of know that the end was near.
Right.
And it was just fatherly advice, and that's one thing that I wish. So is there anything you could say to maybe some parents out there who might be struggling with that, or I don't know what I'm asking. Just
Well, the thing that came to mind, Dave, as you were speaking, I'll just what might be healthy for you or anyone listening would be, even though your dad's passed, his soul is eternal. You could easily write him a letter, let him know. Yeah, that's sweet. I think
I may do that.
it's easy to forget that just because somebody passes from the earth plane, that their souls can still hear us. And I think we limit ourselves in our expression, when we don't remember that. So I'm saying that to you. My dad passed when I was very young. I could do the same. And then we can also, if your parents are living, part of being in your adult is to have a real conversation with the people you love and tell them that's the desire. And that's going to be really hard, probably, because it does shift your relationship. But I think honesty, authenticity, vulnerability, these are the keys to any healthy relationship,
Yeah.
So we are glad that you've been with us, and we hope that you have gleaned some learning, and know that we're learning along with you. You see, in the last a couple of shows, we've teared up 2 or 3 times. That's because these things matter to us, and because we're growing, and we so desire to be. I'm going to say it this way, good souls, souls on the journey that are blessing and supporting others, and certainly who are blessing and supporting our family members, and that, as we grow and learn together. So this is our hope for you. We always say that these shows are about bringing more to reawakening consciousness to love, acceptance, and peace. And all of these things, all of these topics, all of these behaviors are to do just that. So my hope for you, if you are a parent, is that you will become more and more aware that you are a leader, that you are leading your child mostly by your behaviors. So ask yourself, is that something that you're happy with, how you are leading? And then check in with them, be vulnerable enough to ask them how you're doing. Spend some time becoming more conscious about how your behaviors might be leading, and see if you can step back a little and see what their soul is showing you by how are they responding, knowing that all behavior is communication. How can you shift, change, and move to help them grow and develop their own soul and their own gifts and talents? So we thank you for joining us today. As always, dear friend, blessings on the journey.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Susanna Garcia, Shayla Mount, Dorothy Moore, and Agnes Payton. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2020 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.